I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Podiatry Marketing Podcast. With me, as usual, is my co-host and friend, Big Jim Mack. How are you doing today, Jim?
Things are going great, Tyson. No complaints here.
No complaints, nothing at all. Okay, that's good. I was just thinking, with the being Big Jim, I reckon you're going to become a world famous Jim. Because there's not a lot of them.
There's a ton of gyms. There's so many gyms in the world. What are you talking about?
Give me five. Give me five famous gyms.
Jim Abbott, Jimmy Carter. Who else is there?
Okay, who's Jim Abbott?
Oh, he's a pitcher for the California Anaheim Angels. He's a guy that had one arm, or one hand. Jim Tomei, Jim Harbaugh, Jim. There's a lot. I mean, that's just a few gyms.
Out of that list, Jimmy Carter is the only one that I've heard of.
I know there's some sport Jiminy athletes there. Jiminy Cricket, true.
Jiminy Cricket.
Jimmy Crackcorn. Jimmy Mack.
Oh, yeah.
There's some other gyms. That's the only Jimmy Buffett. That's about all I got.
Yeah, see, now you're talking about ones that were Jimmy Buffett. So you're up there with Jiminy Cricket, Jimmy Carter, Jimmy Buffett.
Well, makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Makes me feel good.
Yeah. And then we have Big Jim Mack.
There we go.
Okay. So famous Jim. What are we talking about today?
So a while back, we started like kind of a general conversation, had a little bit of a talk about AI, and we kind of talked about all the different things that, there's a lot of hype about it, obviously, even still, ChatGPT, you've got Facebook releasing their own Llama AI. There's all kinds of different AI products out there, Perplexity, just a lot of different ones. And on the first show, we kind of talked about some generalities about some different potential use cases that you could use AI in the clinic, whether it be writing some, preliminary parts of your blog posts or your website content. And we kind of talked about those, but today I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into probably the use case that's most useful right now, or is most kind of modern enough for people to utilize in their practice. And that's the use of AI medical scribes in your clinical office when you're seeing patients.
Yeah, that is becoming really popular. And the last time I got together with a group of people in July when I did the reboot, a lot of them were talking about that. What programs were they using to have running in the background that were recording the conversation? But I also do exactly the same thing. When I'm on Zoom and I'm doing a coaching call with a client, we'll have AI in the background and it gives us a summary at the end, takes notes. It's amazing what it can do. And even after a few months of using it, I can notice how more accurate it's becoming.
No, it's becoming amazingly accurate. It's over the last year, just the different models and updates that have been released, really, whether it's voice to text or, especially in the case of these AI scribes where, sometimes there's little mistakes here and there, but I would say, from my experience in some of the software I'm using, it's upwards of like 90 to 98% maybe effective as far as getting the exact words that I said. And there's different ways to train them on different medical terminology. But like you mentioned, there's a couple of different ways that people can introduce this into their clinic. The most common way is sometimes it's an extension in the web browser that basically, you can just obviously notifying the patient, before they come to the clinic or even when they're in the room that you're going to be kind of recording this kind of interaction you're having is going to help you take more accurate notes and help better diagnose them and kind of create a more accurate medical record. But sometimes it can be that, or sometimes people are using maybe like an iPad or a mobile phone that has an app in it where basically it's going to record all that, transcribe that entire encounter, and you can then copy paste it into your medical record if it doesn't have an integration already built in. So that's the kind of gist about what we're talking about here for those folks that are totally new to the AI kind of medical scribe idea. But we'll get into a little bit later about what the benefits are. But I've heard a couple of different names being thrown around. The one that I'm most familiar with is something called Heidi AI, and there's also one called Nabla that I'm aware of that are kind of popular these days. There's a lot of other ones out there. I don't really have any relationship with either any of these softwares currently, but Those are kind of the two popular ones. Were there any specific types you were hearing about, Tyson, from the people you talked with?
There weren't that Heidi came up. There were a couple of others. I can't remember what the names were now because it was so long ago.
Sure.
That, but I keep seeing ones popping up on Facebook that other people are developing. But I think the interesting part what you said just before, when you've got to let the patient know that this is actually happening.
Yeah.
You can't have it happening, I think, without telling a patient that this thing is recording. And because some patients might say, no, I'd prefer you didn't. Because they might go, okay, they might be with the notes, but what other conversations are actually happening that they don't want recorded? And this happened to me the other night. I was messing around with Zoom and I've got it set up so the AI automatically records. I forgot that I had Zoom on, and then I went in the kitchen. I was talking to my wife because I had my laptop there. Then I came back and went, oh, I'm just going to turn Zoom off. I turned it off. And then a couple of minutes later, I get an email, and here was an overview of the conversation I just had with my wife. And I went, oh, I can see where there could be problems with patients, which is why it's important to let patients know that it's there,
I
what's
think
happening.
it's also to let them know that, like, why you're saying you're going to be, obviously it'll kind of structure the conversation you have with the patient a little bit more, a little bit differently when you're going through the physical
Yeah.
exam and you're saying things. So you just need to kind of like, if you're checking pedal pulses, right, instead of writing it down, you're going to be maybe speaking it. So there's just some different things. It's going to be maybe a little bit different type of an encounter than they've had before. So giving them kind of a fair warning and just a heads up is, and getting their permission is definitely really, really important.
Yeah, I suppose it'd be one of those things too. You'd say to the patient, I'm recording this on AI. So as you're doing your evaluation, you're talking so AI can record it, asking the patient specific questions. But if you were doing routine foot care, once you're down into the conversation, you could probably turn that off because you
Right.
don't need to hear the latest recipe that was in Women's Day or whatever's happening with your grandchildren. It's totally irrelevant to the treatment that you did. And then turn it back on again if you need to have any closing notes that's required for the file.
Yeah, there's definitely different options like that.
I'll just let you know too that when we finish this recording, I'm probably going to need your audio
Okay.
copy because it's dropping in and out from your end. So I know it's recording everything, but it's dropping in and out. So I reckon we're missing. And it's only when you're making a point. It's only when you go, oh yeah, and there's two things. And then it's fine again.
Okay. Okay. I'll keep that in mind.
So yeah, you'll need to upload the audio for this one so I can use it.
Okay. We'll edit it here.
Yep. Cool.
All right.
So where would you like to start on this subject? Or where should people get more information, or what should they start doing first?
Yeah. So like just kind of going over, we'll talk a little bit about the benefits now. We kind of talked about, how the kind of the workflow happens. Obviously, like I said, you kind of record the encounter and then you're able to kind of copy paste it into your patient record. Obviously, before you make that your final record, you'll want to scan the document, like we talked about in the past. These are not fully fledged yet where they can just do everything perfectly. So you want to make sure that you are the editor and editing that document before it goes into the medical record permanently. So, but then we'll talk a little bit about the benefits. So the first benefit, I would say, it can really increase your efficiency and your productivity. A lot of folks, either they had a bad experience previously with different transcription services. There was Dragon was kind of a very popular one for a period of time that was
Oh yeah.
a bit clunky. Maybe you're transcribing like, on a recording, and then you have a person that's doing the transcription for you, either in your office or outside your office. That can get, very expensive. But the time savings by having that AI transcribe it in real time is that by the time the patient is leaving the office, is that, it's already your note is primary, is once you do that review of it, it's done. It's in the record. And it's not something that's, I remember when I was in practice and you would see that stack of charts at the end of the day. And it would be kind of this dread of like, yeah, you took notes during it, but you had all the like final notes to dictate at the end of the day. And, there's some people that are even dictating notes, on the weekends. I hear that from some people that are in practice. And that just kind of blows my mind that it could be, 48 or 72 hours after they've seen a patient, they're trying to dictate an accurate note. So really you can streamline that workflow by having that automatic transcription that allows you to focus more on your patient care as well. Like I said, there might be a little bit different as far as what you're talking to about the patient. You can obviously turn it off if it becomes something more personal. But you don't have to worry about as much. You can spend other time doing administrative tasks and improving the overall kind of efficiency of your clinic by getting that note done kind of at that time instead of putting it off until later.
Oh, I can really see how it speeds the process up. Because like you said, it's recording everything. All you've got to do is just review it. And then from there, once you've got that accurate information, like you said, it becomes part of the permanent file that you can then draw upon for anything else later.
No, absolutely. Like, and that kind of leads into the next one. And when you have that record that was transcribed in real time, is that you have that enhanced accuracy and consistency. You want to reduce errors, right? Like, we don't want to have medical errors. We don't want to have documentation errors. And by having that in real time, and by doing it when the patient is still in the room, and then maybe reviewing it right after they leave, it's fresh in your mind. You're never going to be more accurate than when the patient is in the room or right when they've left. And
Mm.
just from that perspective, you're going to reduce medical errors and just be more consistent. And it's going to kind of help you standardize, by utilizing these tools, you can kind of standardize your records. It can be uniform across. And, when you can be more standardized, especially in the litigious environment of the United States, when there's high standards and consistency, and if, lawyers have to, or any kind of legal entity reviews your chart, maybe it's insurances reviewing your chart, and you have these detailed, highly accurate notes, it makes you less likely to kind of run into potential issues, whether it be legally or from a malpractice perspective in the future.
Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier on too, even with Zoom, the more that I'm using it, it's I think it's starting to work me out, and it's becoming more accurate as I go. So I assume even with this, the accuracy and consistency, the more you use the program, the more you make changes to say some of the errors that it made, it should be learning as it goes and getting better each time.
No, absolutely. That's a great point. A lot of these, along with AI, there's kind of something called machine learning. And it's like you said, if you have made the same, correction, if you see an AI error, in the transcription, the more times you do it, this software should be smart enough. So you want to make sure you're using a vendor where, when you ask them like, hey, if it, will I keep seeing the same errors or mistakes, or do you have some software within there that's actually making it function better and learn the things I like to say, so I don't have to keep deleting or rewriting that word or sentence. That's definitely something worth sussing out with some of these different vendors.
Yeah, I remember. I think first few times I used AI with anything, you would have sworn the thing was on crack. It just, yeah, yeah. Obviously, we did have that conversation, but what you heard and what we said were two completely different things. And this is going back some time ago, but now, just recently, I remember a summary of one of our calls, and I read through it and I went, that it was so accurate with what we spoke about and who was going to do what, that and then sometimes we joke around because yeah, you say things that you probably shouldn't say. You make a comment about an American president, ex-president, and you sort of wonder, oh, I hope AI isn't sharing this with anyone else.
No, that's funny. I think another type of software that I've seen a huge growth in that as well, and maybe it's somewhat AI related, is things like Google Translate. So me being a
Yeah.
American English speaker in a French Canadian province, 10 years ago when I was trying to use Google Translate to talk to people in French, through text messaging or through internet, messaging, people used to kind of chuckle and laugh, and they could pick it out right away and say, "Hey, Jim, you must be utilizing kind of Google Translate or something, because some of the things you're telling me is really kind of funny, because it wasn't, the words might have been similar to what I was trying to say, but, I didn't dig myself into too much trouble utilizing it. But, now, for example, I use some either Apple or Google Translate, and my mother-in-law thinks I'm fully fluent in written French because my French is so good. She hasn't really caught on to the fact that I'm still utilizing some of these AI and translation tools to appear to be better than I am when it comes to my French writing. But yeah, these tools are evolving over time, and you want to make sure that when you do spend some money on a vendor, that that they are going to kind of adapt and evolve over time to really give you as accurate information in your patient record as possible.
Yeah, and it's like anything. If nobody's used this before, it's something you have to use it to get better at it. Yeah, if you're sitting there thinking, "Oh, I just want to learn a lot more about it before I actually introduce it," I think you have to introduce it. You've got to use it to get better. It's no different to any other program or anything you're doing. Nothing beats the hands-on doing it, making mistakes, learning from it, and you're learning as well as it's learning at the same time.
No, absolutely. And I think a lot of these different softwares will have, some free trials and stuff. So maybe it's, during your lunch break, if you want to kind of have a mock patient and kind of try some of these things out to see how accurate it is. I know things like Heidi AI, like they have some free stuff that you have some free trials you can and do things like that. So definitely worth checking out. I would say the third benefit, kind of moving along, is that this can really lead to kind of improved patient communication and care. When you have this kind of detailed, accurate transcriptions, there's going to be less miscommunication between the conversation you had with the patient, whether it be what you told them their diagnosis was or what the treatment plan was. Also, since it is kind of being made in real time, if they call back 15 minutes later because they forgot something about what you said, it'll all be there. Once you reviewed it and put it into the medical record, that your staff can have stuff that's almost more real time to provide them better information and better kind of medical advice over the phone or through text message these days. So it is really, really important, and it can improve patient engagement because when you have clear and comprehensive records, it's going to help educate your patients about their conditions. Like I said, it's gonna make them feel more trustworthy of you when you're really accurately having these notes to kind of reference not only during this visit but in future visits as well. When you have these super detailed, accurate notes, and you glance at them before you go walk into that treatment room, it's going to build more rapport, and your patients will kind of know that you care, and you're not just kind of running in, spending 5 minutes reading through it. You're going to appear to be more prepared, and you will be more prepared to address their concerns or whatever their issues they're having, or if they're showing improvement, you can kind of relay what things were like at that last visit.
Yeah, especially like the documentation side of things, because I think every podiatrist would have had at some stage in their career when when a patient says to them, "Oh, but you told me this." You go,
We've all been
"No,
there.
I wouldn't have said that because that would be wrong." And they go, "Oh, no, but that's exactly what you told me." I go, "I wouldn't have told you that because that would be wrong. But hey, let's go back and have a look because it will be an accurate documentation of the conversation that took place." And even though you could edit out something if you had said the wrong thing, but I think it would make patients realize too that if they know things are being recorded and documented really well, they're not going to try and pull the wool over your eyes and say, "Oh, you told me this," when they know deep down that you didn't tell them that, but they're trying to make an excuse for maybe not following the right treatment.
No, I think that's a great point. And we don't have those patients all the time, but there are those patients that come in that are like
Oh
that. I
yeah.
remember in practice having that. And yeah, when it's clear that this is a recorded interaction, there is a level of safety and protection that provides not only the patient but also the provider, where it's kind of it kind of levels the playing field a little bit, in a way that can lead to good faith interactions and good faith communication between both the doctor and the patient.
Yeah, well, I know, but I've had a conversation with people. It might just be, say, even on a podcast, and somebody will listen to the podcast and go, "Oh, on the podcast when you said this, this, and this," and I can't remember saying it. But I won't argue with them over it. I'll go, "Oh, well, if you're saying that's what I said, like I know I can go back and listen to it to find out if that's exactly what I said." So I won't, because sometimes you don't always say the right thing. You might have meant something else but you said the wrong
Yeah,
thing.
in the moment. Yeah.
And yeah, in the moment you say something, and all of a sudden you realize, remember, we were talking about something once, and our facts were completely wrong. It was bears. Was it certain bears? Remember we were
Running
talking
in
about that episode about
zigzags
running
with
in
bears.
zigzags? Yeah, with bears, and you were like adamant that that was right. But you can go back to the recording. We can figure out where that conversation took place. This is where I think this type of stuff with documenting, actually keeps you in check as well. I think as a podiatrist,
Yeah.
you can't bullshit. You can't just make stuff up
Right.
because it sounds good, because it's being recorded, it's being documented. So I think it elevates the communication in both ways and the information that's being shared.
Yeah, and it can lead to process improvements, like you're talking about that, right? Like if you did, do something not catastrophic or just something that like, there was a miscommunication, go back to that and say, hey, you're right, I was wrong. So that those miscommunications can happen. I'm sure
Don't zigzag with
99.99%,
bears.
99.99% of the information we provide here is accurate, but occasionally a zigzagging bear tactic will kind of fall through the cracks. But we
Yeah.
apologize if the person
If you were
was
eaten,
listening. Yeah, 'cause if they were eating, we apologize, but you're not around to get back at us. So
yeah, we apologize for that. So what about cost savings? They'd have to save a lot. Since it's saving time, time is money. So there's got to be some cost savings to this.
yeah, so what I've found is that a lot of these softwares are really, really inexpensive, whether it's a standalone software or something that's baked into an EMR or integrated into EMR. These are very inexpensive. AI is not that expensive. Like ChatGPT, for example, the Pro version,
They are
like
cheap, aren't they?
$20 a month, right? But obviously, utilizing something that's HIPAA compliance, whether it be like I said, a Heidi or a Nabla or one of these other HIPAA compliant AI scribes is really, really important to utilize, but it can save a significant amount of money. There's no longer kind of a human in the link. Obviously, like I said, maybe you have a transcription person in your office, or maybe you're outsourcing it to a transcription service, or maybe you've utilized kind of expensive transcription software in the past that you weren't really happy with. There can be some significant cost savings, whether it be a reduced administrative costs within your office, or you can utilize you can be more efficient and resource the allocation, people to do other stuff in the office besides doing transcriptions or, you know, having to track down, medical records or, get on your case because you didn't transcribe that thing yesterday that the patient's calling back about, the prescription or the amount of the prescription or some type of treatment you provided. So it's really, really important that it allows you to kind of redirect your efforts towards enhancing patient care and other kind of areas that are critical to the clinic's operations as opposed to something like transcription. Like I said previously, you want to be the editor, could be significant cost savings here,
Mm.
but you also want to make sure that it's not, like I said, it's not fully baked yet. It's the software is getting better all the time. But you can save a significant amount of money by switching to more of an AI based medical scribe for your clinic.
And I suppose the difference too with these AI programs compared to, say, ChatGTP, which is drawing information from the internet. So it's making stuff up sometimes. Whereas these
Exactly.
AI programs are really only documenting what is being said in the room.
Yeah, and there's also based on, like, certain medical models as opposed to, like, ChatGPT is trained on, like, everything in the world, but these medical models are much more strictly focused on, having better knowledge about treatment protocols or words or medical terminology as opposed to, like, the billions of other things that are out there in the world.
Yeah. And what about security, compliance,
Yeah, so that's
that
really important.
aspect of all this?
Yeah, it's a really important component, like making sure that whatever software you're utilizing is HIPAA compliant. But when it comes to storage, obviously a lot of people are using a lot of electronic medical records. So I've also heard of people using like actual like scribes, like in the Philippines or something, where they have a cell phone where there's like a third party, a human that's transcribing the interaction. Um, you know, and by having that kind of open line or that information going somewhere else outside of the clinic, yeah, there might be a HIPAA contract in place, but there are some concerns if it leaves the office, that this data could be used in ways, and we've seen whether it's on purpose or by someone getting hacked. Large corporations these days are getting hacked and giving away millions of pieces of kind of personal information, and by having an AI system keep that is local, that's not sharing things across the internet, and just copy paste it into the medical record, you're better able to keep your patient's data and medical records safe. So, like I said, these tools can help clinics really stay compliant with healthcare regulations like HIPAA in the U.S., ensuring that your patient information is handled properly and the maximum amount of safety is considered, instead of, like I said, different ways where different transcription services might, kind of increase the amount of risk that your patients have or you have by utilizing different, non-local internet-based transcription or phone-based transcription services that could get hacked or the information could be stolen from.
Yeah, I think the security side of things super important. And I think it's also whatever your security protocol is, I think it's important that you share that with your patient too. Give the patient confidence that you're not just using this program and not thinking about repercussions and what could go wrong. You've already thought this all through. You know their information's safe. They know the information's safe because everyone gets concerned about people hacking computers and hacking other stuff. So I think as long as you share the information with the patients as well, that you've given this thought, it's very safe, everything's secure, I think that'll give them peace of mind as well.
Absolutely, having that conversation is critical to like building trust, and I think these AI medical scribes are going to get more and more prevalent. So it's a trend that I don't think it's going
Oh,
to go away. It feels like something that has kind of product market fit, as you say, and you know, by kind of testing out a few of these different forms of AI medical scribes could be beneficial to your clinic. So I highly recommend that anyone that's listened this far in the podcast, consider trying some of these different ones. I might add a referral link to Heidi and kind of the show notes of this podcast, just for a complete, disclosure. They would give a small, basically a small finder's fee if you sign up through our code, and this would maybe help Tyson and I continue to run the podcast and continue to bring you episodes. But look for the little promo code that will be in the show notes here. But I think it's definitely a topic that's, like I said, not going away. It's only getting bigger. So the sooner people can kind of
yeah.
understand how to use these tools, the better. And if you have questions about them, or like I said, I do have that referral code, but I'm not employed by any of these, or haven't received large sums of money from any of these software companies. And I don't think Tyson has either, unless he's got something to disclose. But definitely try them out
Nah,
and see if they could be a benefit to you and your patients.
no. So you're not going to be picking me up in your private jet, Jim.
Not anytime soon. Not anytime soon.
No, but I do think it's like you go back 10 years ago when people were talking about online bookings. And a few people were doing it, a few weren't, and now that's just the norm. And I think using AI with scribing notes, some people are doing it, some aren't. I think 10 years' time, it will just become the norm. It will just be normal.
Absolutely.
Which program we're all using, it may not have even been developed yet. There'll be something that podiatrists around the world will be using. And I know there's some smaller ones, like in Australia, they're starting, but that are from some other companies that I just wouldn't touch them yet until they've been around a little bit longer.
Absolutely.
Just my... Okay, Jim, nothing else to say on this, or you're done?
Now I think we're good for the week, Tyson.
Okay. So I look forward to talking to you next week.
Sounds great.
Okay, see ya.
Bye now.